Hi, I'm Ken Ellison from Ellison Machine Shop, and you all know me. I'm your engine guy. And today is our first episode that we are bringing in honor of April Fool's Day. I have some stories I want to share with you that I find quite amusing that come from customers that have been in my shop, some of the goofy things that people have said to me, just some of the few blunders in some projects, and also a lot of the comments that I have gotten offline that I think is pretty hysterical. And I can't think of a better day to do them than on April Fool's Day. And with this coronavirus scare, I think being able to sit back and just talk about some little something a little amusing might lighten the mood a little bit. So anyway, I spent a lot of years in the machine shop, and I'm pretty professional with my customers. I don't try to be condescending to no one. When people ask me questions, they'll tell me, "Oh, I have a stupid question I'd like to ask you," and I always tell them there's no such thing as a stupid question. And I tell them, it just because you don't understand something doesn't make you stupid. But I've had some winners over the years. One of the things that's really funny is I have all guys want to come in the shop and act like they build engines and they know what they're doing. I think it's just a male ego thing. But I've been doing this for over 40 years, and if you're not really sharp on what you're talking about, it don't take long for me to know it. I often say, if I read a couple of books, medical journals, and I went to a doctor and started talking to a doctor, it would literally take him 60 seconds to realize I don't know much. I'm just repeating what I've heard. I have this guy came in my shop, and he talking all this techie stuff, making a bunch of classic cliches, kind of you just had to hear it. I really can't describe it exactly, but he's talking like the typical gearhead, and it takes nothing at all. And I'm like, this guy doesn't know too much. He's just repeating what he's heard, and and that's a big part of my job. I have to make sure my customers don't get in trouble. No matter what they ask, I got to make sure they get the right things. They don't get into trouble. So he's telling me about his project, and he's making some points, and he's telling me he wants to put forged pistons in it. It's going to be a fast engine. So okay, so we're going with forged pistons, and I guess we're going to put. And I'm writing up a work order, and going with forged pistons, and I guess we're going to put chrome rings in it. And he stops me and he says, "Nah, because there ain't anybody going to see them anyway." And I nearly gave myself a hernia holding back the laughter. And if you don't know why that's funny, then you probably shouldn't be picking out parts for your own engines. Stay away from ordering your own parts until after you talk to your machinist. I guess he thought the chrome rings were going to be coming buffed up like a set of mags, and that's what chrome meant. But anyhow, a lot of this is what I tell you, you'll find amusing. Some of it will be very amusing to a lot of the other professional engine builders who follow me. That was funny. Online, some of the comments that I get out of some people blow me away. A whole bunch of you shouldn't drink before you post. Probably shouldn't drink it all anyway. But some of the stuff that people write, I just absolutely know it must be happy hour someplace. I think I do some pretty good videos. I give away a lot of technical information, and I have one of the comments that kills me is I have people tell me I talk too much. It's like, hey man, this is a talking video. It's an instructional video. What do you expect? It's my video. I'll talk as much as I want to. I find that hysterical. And I give out a lot of information. Most of my videos are 20, 25 minutes long. And I give a lot of technical information. I've had videos on clearances and tolerance stack and how to calculate horsepower. A lot of really cool stuff. And I do something that drives people crazy. I say engine, and then I say motor. And sometimes I do it back to back. And people get their panties so balled up in a wad over me calling an engine a motor. It's correct. It's correct English. Maybe I should stick to one or another, but it's funny that people will sit back and they will attack me over using the word motor. Tell me it's not a motor, it's an engine. Electric motor is electric motor. A gas engine is a gas engine. Tell them, well, I can go to Ford Motor Company and I can buy a car and take it to the Department of Motor Vehicles and register it. And I could take it and maybe run around the track at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Or maybe when I need to do a tune-up on it, I can look up some specifications in my Chilton's Motors manual. And when I became a dad, I decided to sell my motorcycle. It wasn't an engine cycle. And people tear me up over that. I think that's hysterical. I have another guy. I do a big long video, all this information. You know what he does? He tells me about my hair. Starts telling me my haircut. I'm not a pretty boy. I let my hair grow. Most of the time, it's way too long. By the time this lockdown is over, I'm going to look like the Lion King. But picking on me for my hair. And I'm like, all that information in that video, and you're sitting here telling me I got a mullet. So I flip on over to his webpage, and I looked at it. He's bald as a billiard ball. And I don't mean shaved. I mean, his hair fell out all over the ground. And I told him, I said, you're sitting here picking on me. I said, and you're bald as a billiard ball, Charlie Brown. I said, I got more hair stuck in my brush than you got on your head. And we had a couple exchanges back and forth. It was funny, but that's the kind of stuff you put up with when you do these videos. April Fool. I had a customer come in the shop. Here's a little bit of instructions along with this too. Just some advice on how to get your engines done and not make mistakes. I have so many customers who come through the door who buy their own parts. I've recently had a customer come through the door, brought me a lot of work. He bought all his own parts because he's going to save a buck. He spent so much extra money buying mix match parts, it wasn't funny. Bought things in duplicate, wrong combinations. I mean, and stuff that would literally could run together. But when you buy all ARP hardware and you're running factory pistons and cast rings, you probably spent money you didn't have to. And that's a little bit of a learning curve there. If you should listen to your machinist. Your machinist has got some good advice, and if you talk to him, you won't wind up wasting your money. That was another April Fool. Good guy, nice guy. And believe me, I'm not picking on these people. I'm not calling anybody out. I'm not calling by name. If they recognize your story, I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm just telling you, I answer questions all day long, and I think it's funny, and I just want to share some of this stuff with you. Had a customer come in the door and brought me in an engine to do. We're going to rebuild the whole thing. We tear the motor apart. We do the rebuild. We tear it apart. We do the machine work. And once we get all the machine work and we're ready to go back together, he tells me he's going to put it back together himself. Never built an engine before. And for guys who run machine shops, believe me, I'm not the first person who's dealt with this. I've dealt with this many times. Never, ever, ever built an engine before. So he's going to put one back together that I took apart. He's never pulled one apart either. Well, after several weeks went by of him messaging me back and forth, I finally get the engine back in, and it had all kinds of issues with it. Bearings were torn up, caps were on backwards. Literally, rod and main bearings, had to throw them away. Had to throw them in the trash. They had to be replaced. The crank was all nasty, and it was just being assembled. Thank goodness that he wasn't able to get this thing to the point he was ready to start it, because it would have blew up immediately. So, we put it back together for him. That's another kind of a April Fool's story, except my April Fool sometimes is 365. We experience things like this all the time, and it's all part of running the shop, and it kind of drives you crazy, kind of makes you laugh. I have had a customer come in the door who had on his desktop dyno program, comes in bringing me in some 172 intake valves, wanting me to put them into a small block Chevy heads in the exhaust. He's got intake valves that he wants me to machine it open because, not asking can you do this kind of stuff, but sitting here telling me that his program tells me that he can do that and it'll make more power. And it's like, well, does your program tell you that when you open up your exhaust bowls that you're going to break into the antifreeze before you ever get to a 172 diameter? Does your program tell you that your 172 intake valve is going to hit your 172 exhaust valve now is going to hit your intake valve. It's not possible. It takes a lot more to be an engine builder than reading magazines. I have I couldn't tell you how many times I've had a customer tell me that if they had the equipment, they would do it themselves. You know, if I had a boring bar, I'd bore my own block. Yeah, because you know what? That's all you have to do. You know, all you have to do is get a boring bar, and it's that simple. You just go ahead and read a book and bore the block. There's no experience involved in it, which, you know, of course, I'm being facetious. I had my gallbladder out last summer. If I'd have had a scalpel, I'd have took it out myself. I watched a YouTube video and took it out myself, right? Of course not. It's silly. Reason I tell you all this is that you don't want to take for granted the value of your engine machinist. We've lost 2 machine shops here in my area in the past 8 to 10 months. And one of the big reasons that we're losing machine shops is that so much of the crate engine stuff and guys that are buying their parts online, you think you're saving yourself a lot of money, and in some cases maybe you are. I'm not disputing that it's not possible, but you can't possibly think that if you're designing your own engine for the very first time, that you're going to pick out all the same parts that I pick out, or that your engine builder would pick out. The chances of you designing an engine that is as good as one of mine is slim to none if you've done a half a dozen of them in your lifetime. If you've done 50 of them in your life, if you've done 100 of them in your lifetime, you're still a rookie amongst guys that have built thousands. And you should hire people that you trust. I hope you got a machine shop that you trust. And if you don't trust him, you should find someone else. Even if you have to travel a little bit, you should have somebody that you trust. Hopefully somebody that you not just trust, but somebody that you like, that when you talk to him, talks back to you, explains things to you. I have a doctor that I never tell him what test to perform. I never tell him I just tell him what hurts, what doesn't feel right, and I do what the doctor tells me. I have a lawyer that I give him all my information, and then whatever, on a few legal things that he's handled for me, I do exactly what the man says. I put my trust into him totally. Now, I've had people say, well, this machinist messed this up, or he messed it. I'm not going to sit back and tell you that everybody in the whole plant is perfect. But if you've never built an engine before, getting it right your first time is not easy. I had a customer come in the door a while back and brought me in a small block Ford, and he told me it's on my bucket list to build an engine. And I don't care if I have to do this 3 or 4 times. He says, I'm going to get this together myself. I'm going to get it running right. It's just something I always wanted to do. I really respect that. Something he wants to do. I think that's pretty cool. But you have to understand that if it's not on your bucket list, thinking that you can assemble an engine as good as a guy doing it in a professional setting who does it for a living probably ain't worth those few dollars that you're saving. Might ought to think twice about that. So anyway, I haven't done a video in a while because we've been really, really backed up, and we're going to start getting some knocked out here. I just wanted to stop in, say hi, and share a few things that I thought was funny. Say happy April Fool's Day, and we have some good stuff coming up on that 306-cylinder Ford that we've had sitting on ice forever, our Radical race motor. Right now, we have pistons being made in California, and the virus is slowed production down, so I don't know when I'm going to see them. But we've got everything done almost that we can possibly do, and when that stuff gets here, we're going to be back online showing you all that stuff. So follow our videos. I appreciate it greatly, and we'll see you soon.